Hello and welcome to the ThreeWill Podcast. This is your host, Danny Ryan, and I am here with Tim Coalson. Tim, how's it going?
Good. How you doing today, Danny?
I'm doing great. We're wrapping up the day here, a little past 4, so I appreciate you taking the time to come and sit with me for a little while.
What better way could I spend February 14th, Valentine's Day?
You don't have to hold my hand, though, man.
Are those chocolates for me?
Now, you've done something sweet for Sonia, right?
Of course.
Okay,
of course.
You're already done with
Just
doing
my
something?
mere presence. So.
Your mere okay, Tim, let's talk afterwards. We're going to have to talk a little bit after this, okay? We wanted to talk today about logging, the exciting subject of logging. And what I wanted to find out was how are you using it on projects? What are you doing with it? Just get me up to date on what's going on here.
Yeah, I am and have been working probably for the last year on a public site for a tax and auditing software company. So we were working on a support site, and we found that logging could be really valuable to us. We initially had logging for just normal debugging, things that we could, when we call services and such, when we could capture errors and things like that. But we've sort of gotten a broader vision of how logging can be used, not only just for debugging, but also to start to capture some analytic type information. So part of our project has been the creation of a logging framework with an associated viewer and just a lot of configuration options to be able to look at different parts of the application, either in standalone log files or collected together in a bigger file. But basically the idea is that from the time a user logs on, even if they're not authenticated using a session ID, we can see exactly what that user did, how they used the system. Of course, there's tools out there to do some of that as well, but we're doing this at a logging level to be able to see how they navigated through our parts of the application and based upon their activities. For example, if they did a search in our knowledge base, did they have to page through the results, or seemingly did they get their answer on the first page, or do we see that once they did a search, then they actually had to page through the results to find what they were looking for, which might indicate that maybe the relevancy in our search needs to be tweaked.
So are you using this logging for, I guess, when people are you have issues on the site and people are raise up that there's a problem that they're having with the site? Are you using this logging tool to try to reproduce the error that they're getting, or is
right? It's really being used for all these things we're talking about, not only analytics but troubleshooting. So, for example, we're generating log error reports on a daily basis. That way, an administrator of the log can go through and look and see all the errors that were raised in the application during the day. And of course, if you start to see certain errors being, happening, multiple times, then certainly you start to see that's a good area we should do some research in to see is there a problem with the application, or is there a path that the code is going down that we didn't anticipate and that's causing problems. So it's really kind of a proactive way that even if users don't take the time to submit, call or submit a ticket on the site, it's a way for us to kind of proactively see, oh wow, maybe there's a problem here that we need to fix. So,
you mentioned you use the word framework? Are you using any open source frameworks for this, or?
Yeah, Log4net is the foundational tool that's being used, but then part of the project team has written wrappers around that to be able to configure that. So we have configuration screens where log administrators can go in and they can establish for each part of the application what level of logging do we want to see. Do we want to see an info level logging, which is kind of a high level view of, okay, what's the user doing on the site, or do we need a debug level? Typically we run in an info level where it's pretty high level view, but then if we start to see there's issues or want to see at a lower level exactly what's going on, we can set it at a debug level and and then we have statements scattered throughout our code that are showing the values of certain objects throughout the life cycle of certain transactions that happen in the application. That way you can kind of see what was going on at any given point in time, and of course any error information if there is an error that you're trying to trace down.
I'm sorry, ever since you used the word wrapper, I have this stuck in my head. Remote access WAN WAPO. I don't know why I think Elmer Fudd's saying that. I don't know what part of my history that comes from, but so it sounds like the team is utilizing this pretty extensively. How do you are you using this on other projects, or is it just this one project? Or
we have used it on other projects. We've within our SharePoint applications, oftentimes we'll create a logging table where we log any kind of exceptions there, or log any information there that we want to be able to track. Matthew Chestnut, one of my coworkers, he's had a much longer history, maybe because he's a lot older than me, but a much bigger history with logging. He has some nice tools that he uses, Debug View and Beartail, so that you can actively watch the logging as it occurs and see it as it scrolls, which is nice to when you're trying to either validate that your logging makes sense, that it tells the story, or just as you're running the application with this Beartail tool, you can turn on highlighting so that anything with the word error will show up in red, so you can easily see an error as it scrolls across your screen because it's going to be in a bright red font. So
nice.
It's just a nice way to, as you're working, to be able to see maybe even unexpected errors that you don't anticipate that are kind of being caught through with your exception handlers that are catching these errors. Nevertheless, you can see them in the log and know that they're happening. So even though it may not show up within the application screen, the user may not be aware of it, which hopefully they're not seeing errors, but behind the scenes there could be errors that are being thrown and caught. So these tools allow you to see those real time as you're testing.
Is this something just our team is going to use, or is this something that we're transitioning over to them to use as well? Or both teams using it?
This is, it's been a joint effort. I mean, we were actually both teams were using it, but on this project itself, it's become a lot more formalized. So we're actually, like I said, building this whole framework around the logging so that it's not only just a developer tool, but really becoming a system administration tool where a person will actually have the assigned role of going through reviewing these logs on a regular basis to determine, are there things that we can see that are happening that we need to proactively fix before we start getting calls from customers, or are there other, usage patterns from an analytics standpoint that we can learn from to, better maybe organize, the data on the screen to, make the most important things that our users are hitting, maybe make those a little bit more visible.
Mm-hmm. Are you using this alongside? Are you guys using like an analytics tool at all?
The long-term view is to actually purchase a product so that essentially all these logs that are being written to on the individual front-end web servers can all be collected in a single location.
Okay.
And a lot more analytics done on the data. So.
Cool. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's sometimes your kind of vision of logging, at least for me, is expanded. We've used Google Analytics obviously in the past to capture certain events, but this is just another opportunity to collect more information within the application and have it available to be able to look at it, slice it and dice it, and kind of see what's going on. So
this has been nice because this project is a sustainment project, so it's a multi-year project. So it's something, typically we're building out these applications and then transitioning them over. This is one where we're supporting the application over the long term.
Yeah, so we're being part of the whole evolution, from the beginning where it was really more of a debugging tool to now where it's being evolved by the entire team to be more of an application unto itself that we can get a lot of value out of. So.
Excellent. Anything else before we wrap up?
I think that'll do it. I'm looking at that chocolate over there. So
You got some weird chocolate? Where? Chocolate? Well, thanks, Tim. Thanks for taking the time to do this.
have a good day.
You betcha. Take care. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Bye-bye.